This just in, we're one more sleep away from Wednesday's quarterfinal in the Rose Bowl. Of course, Oregon and Ohio State. Both coaches speaking ahead of that one. Let's listen in.
You know, it's exciting part of football season. I think this is always one of my favorite parts of the year. We get to watch, you know, some historic teams get the opportunity to battle out there on the field. I know our players have really enjoyed every bit of the experience. We're grateful for the Rose Bowl and the service they've provided for our team. This is certainly a little bit different landscape this year because of how bowl games are set up, but the Rose Bowl has been first class in every way. Growing up as a kid, you remember getting to be a part of games like this, so this is one we're really thrilled to compete in. Obviously, Ohio State's a great team, so this will be a fun challenge for our guys.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Day?
Yeah, I echo what Dan said. First off, I want to thank everybody with the Rose Bowl committee, and they do an unbelievable job here. It's one of the greatest settings there is in college football, and we're excited to be here, you know, for a lot of reasons. And you know, the third time that I've had an opportunity to be here, and it is a beautiful setting, and we have a great opponent here, and got a lot of respect for Oregon and how Dan runs his program and his players and his team. So very unique situation in that we're both now in the Big Ten, but you know, when you look back on the history of the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the matchups that have been before, I think it makes it even more special, this game. So excited about that. It also, you know, for us, having Archie Griffin and the statue built here and also at Ohio Stadium, just a lot of history here at Ohio State in terms of playing in this Rose Bowl. So excited for the game, excited for our fans to get here and, you know, get into L.A. and obviously enjoy the game. So we've had a great week of preparation, like Dan said, different preparation. You know, it's not really a bowl game, quote unquote, with events. It's more about a playoff game, and so excited about the opportunity to play.
Thank you, Coach. We're now going to open up the floor for questions. We have 2 mic runners on both sides. Please raise your hands. When you ask a question, please state your name and your media outlet. We'll start with a question here on the left-hand side.
Joe Nugent, WCMH Columbus. Question for both of you. Start with Ryan. I'm wondering how this is different preparing for a Rose Bowl where you have 2 teams that could win it all, yet knowing that you still have 2 more to go.
Yeah, it's a different experience. It's more of a, you know, it's like being in a routine of a game week. And, you know, usually when you prepare for a bowl, there's a whole month of preparation. This is more of a routine. So I think we've all seen this coming and so have prepared for what these are going to look like in terms of the preparation. But it's been good for our guys. You know, there's no classes right now, so they've been able to really just focus on football, you know, getting out here, getting acclimated, and getting to work. But you know, I just think the biggest thing is it's more like being on a road game during the week, just a longer season.
Yeah, very similar thought process for us. You know, you can't worry about the next game until you take care of business in this game. And for us, that's the way our teams approached it. You know, obviously when you play a team like Ohio State, you have to bring your best. So I don't think you can look too far down the road. You have to focus on right now. But it's been, you know, you wait till you get about 7 days out and you try to set it up very similar to what a week would look like for normal week preparation during the season.
Take a question. Please raise your hand if you have one. We'll go in the front right there. Black hat.
Ryan Clark with Oregonian. For both of you, what do you respect most about the way the other person runs their football program?
Yeah, I'll start. I think, first off, Dan does a great job in terms of recruiting. Recruits very talented young men with a lot of high character. They're very well coached, and they play very, very hard. And you can see that when you put the film on. And because, you know, when you watch people and you know, see different programs, at the end of the day, you still got to watch the film and see how guys are played. In all 3 phases, they're well prepared and they play really hard.
Yeah, I can share that sentiment. Obviously, a really talented team, and that's kudos to the work that they do in the off season and during the season. You know, recruiting is something you got to do every single day. I think both of our programs do that at a high level. You can see that with Coach Day and the people that they bring into their program. More than that, like you said, when you turn on the film, you try to find weaknesses in an opponent. It's really hard to find weaknesses in Ohio State in all 3 phases. The way they play on special teams, the effort, the guys they utilize. Right, a lot of places you'll watch and you'll see certain plays that they don't have their best players on the field. You know, Ohio State has their best players on the field consistently. They play hard for each other, and it shows up.
Please raise your hand if you have a question. We'll have one right in the middle. The mic's coming over.
Yeah, for each of you, how important is it do y'all see the importance of your quarterback sort of having visualization sessions, for want of another term, for games of this magnitude to anticipate what's coming, et cetera?
Yeah, we always talk about playing the game as many times as you can before you play the game. I think that's really important, regardless of the setting, whether that's the meeting room, a walkthrough, sitting in your hotel room at night, right? How many times can you play the game before you play the game? You know, trying to picture what the opponent might do. And I think if you do that, that gives you the best opportunity to be successful, you know, really on game day, when you can visualize, you know, a lot of those different experiences that are going to show up in a game, you know, on game day. And if you can do that in advance, that gives you a great opportunity to be able to adapt and adjust when the game comes.
Agreed. I think for the quarterback position, it's probably the most important, but it's important for all positions. And I think when you get to this point of the year, when you watch how NFL teams prepare late in the season, you know, into December, you notice that, you know, there's a lot of that going on, whether it's walkthroughs, meetings. You have to visualize things. You can't always do everything, you know, the same way you did in August or September. And so you have to fall back on your experiences, but then you also have to anticipate what's coming next. And that's a big part of this time of year, and having the discipline to put that work in when, you know, you're multiple months into the season. And I think, you know, typically that's the team that's going to outlast their opponents, is, you know, continually doing what you just said, is visualizing things and doing the mental work, so that when you get into the game, you can fall back on your training.
If you have any additional questions, please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Go in the back right.
James Carpy with the Oregonian. For both of you, with the commissioners meeting to discuss a possible format change as soon as next season, in part because of seeding like in this matchup this early in the quarters, what are your perspectives on what the seeding changing should be, if the conference champions should continue to get first round buys, or if it should be more truly seeded like they're discussing?
Furthest thing from my mind right now, right? I'm worried about right now. So I think college football is going to continue to see change. I think our job as coaches is to continue to adapt. Ultimately, like, what an awesome game this is, right? What an opportunity this is. But I'm sure the people that need to be able to assess that will assess it. But that's not my concern right now at this point in the season. Our concern is Ohio State.
Yeah, same here. Focus is on this Rose Bowl and this game, but I know we're all learning. Everybody's learning as we're going through this new format, and I'm sure after the season there'll be time to discuss those things.
We have a question on the left-hand side over here. No, we don't have it over there. We have one right in the middle. Sorry about that.
Austin Kroom, Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio. You guys played each other week 7, you know, one of the matchups that a lot of the country saw as a potential national championship rematch. Now, months later down the line, two different teams, two different identities. How do you both stay the same with your game plan and not focus on what the media is talking about?
Well, first off, I think that you know, Oregon certainly, you know, in that game played a tremendous game and has continued to get better as the season's gone on. But I think both teams are just in a different place than we were midway through the season. And, you know, it's going to come down to the play on the field. And, you know, there's a balance there of the things that, you know, your team has, you know, built their foundation on, but also having change-ups and mix-ups, and it's about matchups, and we know that. It's about matchups on our end, it's about matchups on their end, and then, you know, understanding that in all three phases, it all has to work together. So, you know, you see this in the NFL playoffs a lot, where teams will play each other again later on in the season. This is an example of that. So you're going to see it more and more as we move forward, and it's just going to become part of college football.
Yeah, ultimately, I feel like great teams have tendencies. You're supposed to, right? There's things that Ohio State does really well that I'm sure that they'll work to do in this game, and there's things that Oregon does really well that we're going to try to do in this game as well. So it's a little bit of the double-edged sword of how much do you want to change going into a next game. But I'll say this: every time you turn on Ohio State's film, you do see new wrinkles. You see Coach Day and his staff coming up with new things that make it a challenge to prepare for, and I think we challenge our coaches here to do the same thing. So, like you said, we're different teams at this point. You know, at Oregon, we talk about trying to be the best version of ourselves towards the end of the season. That's when you have to play your best ball, and we'll certainly need to be able to play our best ball, and I expect the same from them at the end of the season here.
Our next question will come from Dennis Stott over on the right-hand side.
Dennis Stott, CBS Sports, for both coaches. 5 Florida State basketball players sued their head coach for unkept NIL promises. Your 2 programs are at the apex of that. Short of, I guess, congressional intervention or collective bargaining, what is the future of that right now? For both coaches.
He wants me to answer this one first. I want him to answer this one first. I'll just say this again. Furthest thing from my mind right now, growing up in the Midwest, you have to be a man of your word. What you say is what you have to do. I think that's something we believe in here at Oregon. I don't think there's a lot of clarity in college football right now. I think everybody realizes that, and I think we'd all be in favor of having some clarity. But you also want to compete to be the best. So each school is different in how they operate. I know at Oregon, we're about integrity, and what we say is what we do. But I can't speak to that situation because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, hard right now, a day out of this game, to be really even commenting on something like that. I appreciate the question. Our focus is on this game right now. That being said, when you start getting into these conversations, obviously, the legal folks start getting involved, and I think for all of us, we would like a little bit more structure in those areas to alleviate some of those issues.
Our next question comes over here on the left-hand side.
Hi, Haley Sawyer, SoCal News Group. Dan, this isn't the first time that Oregon's playing in Southern California this season, so what does it do for recruiting, just getting your product on the field in this region, attracting those SoCal recruits?
Yeah, for us, we challenge ourselves to make sure we can sign the best, across the nation, but certainly California is a hotbed for us in recruiting. It's a place that we want to make sure we have a stand, and we want to go get the best of the best. So getting to play in premier games like the Rose Bowl, I think that's things that, kids on the West Coast grow up dreaming of, and being here, having that opportunity is certainly something that's going to help us in recruiting.
We have a question on the far back right.
Yeah, Steve Hellwagon with Bucknuts 24/7 Sports. The first game you guys played, Oregon hit 8 chunk plays of 25 yards or longer. I guess I would just ask Coach Day, obviously the defense has played much better in the 7 games since then. What systems in place do you have to not allow that type of performance again? And then for Coach Lanning, kind of the chess match of taking what their adjustments are and still trying to hit those big plays.
Yeah, you want me to just give him the game plan now? Is that
right?
You want me to
I was
do?
going to start taking notes if he starts.
So here's what we're going to do. Certainly coming out of that game, that was a huge part of the game, and I thought that Coach Stein and everybody on their staff did a great job of scheming up some plays to attack us, and then they did a great job of executing them. I thought the route running and the throwing and catching and protection, it all goes in together, and they did a great job of that in creating exploits, and that's, as we all know, a huge factor in winning and losing games. And coming out of that game, we certainly recognized that. That was no secret. So we've worked hard to make adjustments in those areas. We know that we're going to see a lot of the same type of things coming into this game. I'm sure it's not going to be the same exact style, but they're still going to have those type of ways to attack us. So we got to do a great job of getting lined up. We got to do a great job of communicating, and then post snap, we got to run to the football and understand what's going on.
Yeah, and same on the other side of the ball, right? There were a lot of lead changes and score changes in the game last time. There was explosive plays on both sides. So the team that probably has the least explosives on their defense and the team that creates the most on their offense is probably going to have the most success.
Our next question comes from the middle left, right over here.
Luke Evans, Southern California News Group. Ryan and Dan, maybe hard to talk about or predict what the future is going to be with NIL and that concept. Where you look at where these two programs have come from in terms of how you build a roster in the modern era of collegiate football, how do you feel like both of your programs have kind of been on the forefront of that across this modern landscape?
Yeah, I would just say, from the day that I've gotten here at Oregon, I've always felt like Oregon's about innovation. I talked about adapting is a really important trait right now in college football, and being able to adjust on the fly. That's something that we're prepared to do as we continue to move forward. So I'm glad to be in a place that's on the forefront of that.
Yeah, I think all programs want to make sure they're doing everything they can to put the most talented roster together and talent acquisition, but we also have to continue to build our culture, and so that starts in high school recruiting and then developing and retaining those men who understand what it means to be in the program, and then adding pieces through the transfer portal. And that's how we look at it, and we need to do a great job of identifying those prospects and recruits that want to be at Ohio State, and then building those guys up so that in year 2, 3, and 4, they understand what it means, so that when adversity hits at some point, you stick together as a team and as a culture. So that's been a big part of it. But also, we all know how fortunate we are to be at Ohio State, where we have the resources to make sure the guys have what they need to want to stay at Ohio State. And for those who want to join the group and fill holes that may be in the roster, that we have those resources as well.
Our next question comes from the back right.
Brady Ruth, Daily Emerald. In a game as big as this one, how do you guys balance talking about the importance of momentum and capturing it, but also responding when momentum's maybe not on your side?
Yeah, well, first off, you got to be in the moment. You got to create your own momentum, and execution fuels emotion. And knowing that there's going to be a lot of back and forth, just like in the last game, there was a lot of back and forth in that game. You look at the way it started, the way it was in the middle, and the way it ended. And so, understanding that we all have to have poise throughout the game, knowing that it's going to be a 4-quarter battle.
Yeah, ultimately, it is about execution over emotion, right? That's something we spend a lot of time talking about, and your ability to get to the next play is the most important play, right? Regardless of the result.
All right, Ryan Day and Dan Lanning not really giving us any type of bulletin board material, but look, all you got to do is look back in October when these two met in 2024. It's only right they get us going for New Year's Day on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Rose Bowl, the quarterfinals, one of 4 games. The closer we get to a championship. Ohio State, of course, looking to avenge that loss. Oregon trying to remain #1 and perfect to get to a national championship. But keep it here on HQ. We'll keep it locked in.